All right. Welcome to episode 2 of the Naked Wine Podcast.
The Naked Wine Pod. We have Kendra.
And Remington.
And today on the Naked Wine Pod, we will be talking about Petnuts.
Petnuts.
Beautiful Petnuts. We already took off the crown cap, but that is indeed a Petnut.
Better known as Petnut Naturel, but Petnut for short. And it's a really cute little name. So let's pour it because I'm dying to have some.
Yes. It is from Chile, which is kind of a lesser known wine region. But we're really excited to try it. Truthfully, none of us have had this one before, but we've had a few different wines. They make a nice orange wine and a nice red wine called Petnut. It is from the País grape, which is a kind of an obscure grape, but in Chile, a little tidbit that I read was the País grape was the most planted wine grape in all of Chile until the 90s when Cab Sauv took it over.
Cool.
But let's give it a quick
smell
and taste. Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers, miss.
We've been having so much fun with this podcast. A little bit about Rem and I. We have over 20 plus years experience of drinking wine.
Purely drinking wine.
We have no certifications, but we've done a lot of studying and a lot of research.
And a
lot of rescuing wine from bottles.
Probably started when I was like 12 at communion, Probably took a couple gulps of that
As
communion
one does.
cup.
This is a little sweeter than I thought it would be, to be honest. I like it.
So the quick tidbits on this, it's quite nice. It's like peachy, strawberry-y.
I definitely get like
smoky.
I definitely get stone fruit with it for sure, like nectarines.
It's from the País grape, and the other ones that this producer. So here's the label.
It's a really cool label.
Super good looking, cute label. And it's just called Petnat Rosé Brut Nature. It's from this producer down in Chile. His name is Luis Antoine Lut, and it's from the Maule Valley in Chile. It's only 10.5% alcohol, so kind of tells you that it might be a little bit sweeter.
Yeah.
Which it is. I would say it's like off dry sweetness.
But it's very light and refreshing, as most Petnuts are usually on the lighter, brighter side.
And we will get into that.
First of all, shout out to Lincoln Fine Wines. This is where we purchased this Petnut. It's one of our favorite local wine shops in Venice, California.
And the importer, if you all are into that, is Louis Dresner. Thank you for bringing it to the United States. We will definitely have a whole imported episode one of these days.
All right. So we're going to hop into it. We've got Instagram up there. We've got YouTube down here. And then, of course, hello to all of our listeners.
Hello.
And let's dive into what is a Petnut.
What is a Petnut? So I'm sure y'all are familiar with champagne. Popping bottles, whether it's Cook's or
all
whether
day
it's
or day. Champagne for days.
Who doesn't love a good mimosa?
Yeah.
But this isn't really mimosa wine.
No.
You
don't really want to make a mimosa with a Petnut. That's definitely not the experience.
It's not the experience. So what is a Petnut? We said Petnut is Petnat Natural, Petnut for short. It is also referred to as and it says it right here on this label, the method ancestral.
Or ancestral method.
And for the English listeners. It's a super old school winemaking method. Quick little research I did. It's been made for over 5 centuries. In the 1500s, somebody was messing around with their wine, bottled it in the winter. The yeast kind of went dormant. Come spring, the yeast kind of woke up and got a little bit more lively again, and he noticed bubbles in his wine. So he's like, what the heck?
This is either a very good thing or a very bad thing.
We think it's quite a good thing. So they started messing around with it. And basically, if you are fermenting wine and you put it in a bottle and you cap it before it's done fermenting.
With a beer cap.
A beer cap, exactly. So this is how you'll see most Petnuts in the store, how you can identify that most of the time it's an effervescent wine.
So it's not going to have a cork.
No cork. You're not. Probably the most exciting part about champagne, besides drinking it, is the cork.
Popping it.
Popping it.
But this one, you're basically just opening up like a bottle of beer.
Like a bottle of beer. So back to what a Petnat is. It is literally just bottling the wine before it's done fermenting, putting a crown cap on it, letting the rest of the fermentation process take its course.
Yep.
And as you all know or may not know, during fermentation, when the yeast are feasting on the sugars, it produces alcohol and CO2. CO2 being the lovely bubbles that you get in a Petnat. So
why don't we talk a little bit about the difference between Petnat and, say, champagne?
I think that's a great idea. So, Miss, you are a champagne lover.
I do love champagne, but Petnats are my kind of new fave too for sparkling wine, because I find that there's just such a huge, massive range of tastes and all different kinds of Petnats and champagne, that kind of classic champagne taste that I love and that you look for. There's just not as much diversity when you're drinking different champagnes than if you're trying and experimenting with different.
And I'll set you back a little bit more than most Petnats do.
True, like a bottle of Petnat, it ranges from what, $20 to
$20 to $40. $40 on the high end for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, so quick, high level champagne. They call it Method Champenois. We're both fluent in French, if you can't tell.
Not this one.
Basically, that method of making sparkling wine, champagne, and a lot of getting a little ahead of myself here. But champagne it can only be called champagne if it's from the Champagne region in France.
Right.
But it's a specific method where you fully ferment a wine. So you ferment it all the way through, so no residual yeast are left in it. And then you stick it in a bottle and you add something called a dosage, I believe. Don't quote me. Which is a little extra yeast and a little extra sugar to it. So it's like giving this wine some more go-go energy juice. Some more yeast, some more sugar. You put a crown cap on it, actually, and you let it sit in the caves.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And yeah, most of them put a crown cap on it while they let it sit in the caves.
Okay.
It's basically, it's not quite the natural method because you're adding something to it. Here on the Naked Pod, we love our wines that are stripped down from all the mumbo jumbo.
We want the wine
grapes,
naked, natural, biblical wine.
Naked. Literally, if it's not Jesus wine,
we're not drinking it.
Our bodies are temples, so it's not going to touch our lips. But on a serious note, when making champagne, they give it some extra. So you're not adulterating the wine, but it's not minimal intervention. You're doing something extra to the wine that you don't necessarily have to do, but it creates this wonderful thing that we call champagne.
So they're tampering with it a little bit.
A little bit.
Yeah.
They'll let it sit, and then they'll disgorge it. High-level disgorging is you freeze the bottle, the end of the wine. The yeast will go to the bottom. You pop open the top, and the CO2 will push this yeasty icicle out of the wine. They'll fill it up a little bit more with some extra wine in case you lost some, and then they put their cork into it.
Got it.
And it produces that really bubbly, super effervescent, tasty,
delicious,
bready champagne that we all love.
Yeah.
And Petnats,
it's kind of sounds like that first step that they went through.
Exactly.
But then they don't do the second step.
It's a little bit simpler, a little bit more natural. You literally, take your fermented grapes, stick it in a bottle, the juice that is, put a crown cap on it, wait, and you're good to go. It's a lot more risky. It's a lot more variable. You don't know how bubbly it's going to be. You don't know how lively or how many, yeast particles you have in there. But it produces a super natural, just let it ride, pop it open, see what we got kind of wine.
I love it. So Petnats can be made from white and red grapes, correct?
So champagne, they have very specific rules to call a wine a champagne. It has to be made from Chardonnay grape, a Pinot Noir grape, or I always forget the last one. I think it's a Meunier. Meunier? I
Don't
can't
quote
remember.
us on
I
that.
can't remember the last grape, but it's like literally a specific couple grapes that it can be made from. Where a Petnat literally can be made from any grape varietal. So you see Petnats in all colors: white, red, orange. This is like a rosé because it's from Pais, which is a red grape.
Yeah, for the ones who are just listening, it's got kind of like a ballet pink sort of a peachy pink color.
Peachy ballet shoe pink type of color. Super easy drinking, super like chuggable because it's not even that effervescent either. Like
no, it's not super bubbly.
But it's delicious. It's like it's breakfast. It's kind of like breakfast wine. I could drink this.
Only us would drink Petnuts for breakfast.
I think there are some listeners out there. I know. Hit us up if you are a Petnat for breakfast kind of person. And
I would have it for breakfast.
If we get no comments, then I might be concerned.
If you're not having Petnat in an inappropriate hour, you should probably just forget about us. We're heathens.
So most Petnats aren't disgorged. To hop back onto the kind of like the differences. So I mean, I don't think you can see it, but if you can, it's very cloudy.
Yeah.
Very cloudy. You see that on the bottom? These are yeast particles and sediment.
Yeah.
So they did not disgorge it, and these are kind of like yummy, tasty yeast chips that you can eat. They're kind of salty. They're kind of, I don't know, they're kind of funny, but...
yeah, there is quite a bit with this bottle in particular of sediment on the bottom.
So that's kind of a characteristic of a Petnat, is crown cap, one. Sediment, leftover yeast cloudiness, two.
Lower in alcohol.
Let's talk about that. Characteristics of Petnats. They're generally like lighter weight.
Yeah.
In not super high in alcohol. This one's 10.5%. It's kind of, there's kind of a couple categories. I think there's kind of like kombucha-y tasting ones.
Yeah.
Acidic. They're generally a lot more acidic than normal champagne.
And then there's more like there are ones that do kind of have more of that classic like champagne taste.
Yeah. Like that bready,
yeasty taste. And then there's also Petnats that are super floral.
Yeah.
Like very tart and crisp and bone dry.
Because it can be made from any grape.
And I love those kinds. That's like
a muscat, a Petnat from a muscat. It's like very,
that one I love.
The producer up in San Jose area. Birachino.
I love that one. It's super bone dry, very, very bubbly, which I do love the bubbles. This is lovely as well. But
the bubbles a little bit.
The bubbles settle pretty much immediately. But the Birachino one is super bubbly. Thank you. And very bone dry. So I guess the point is like Petnats are all over the board. On tasting notes.
But what I generally do, or we do, is it kind of depends on your mood. So some days we're like, man, I want a champagne, but either, I want it to be kind of a natural wine or I don't want to spend $50.
Right.
We'll go in and we'll ask what Petnat is natural and kind of made or tastes like a champagne. Yes. And you can get some that are a little bit similar. Not all of them have to be kombucha, acidic, floral,
or sweet. I do think it's important if you are the kind of person that likes the drier bubbles. It is important with a Petnat to specify, because it can be so on the spectrum, to specify that you do want a dry Petnat. I find that helpful for sure.
Super helpful. Like walking into a wine store and the wine shop rep employee should just be your best friend. I mean, use them and never be afraid to describe, like use the wrong word. What if you want to describe the wine as looking like macaroni color and tasting like a fruit roll up, that's totally fine. Don't be afraid to use your words, because there's no wrong answer when describing wine.
And that's their job. Like our dear friends at our different favorite wine stores, they love that. They don't care if you know what you're talking about. They're there to help you. They want you to enjoy your wine. Yeah. And like find the wine that is going to make you.
And if you don't speak up, you won't get what you're looking for.
Exactly.
So speak up. But let's get back to some more characteristics of a Petnat. So we've covered the kind of lighter weight. They are generally lower in alcohol. They are
Mhm.
fizzy and effervescent, but not super carbonated like most
Mhm.
champagnes are. We started talking about the cost a little bit.
Yep. It can definitely be more affordable than a bottle of champagne.
So much more affordable. Like
For sure.
I would not think twice about drinking a Petnat every single day of my life.
Yeah.
But where I'm at currently in the stage of my life right now.
We have Petnuts on picnics. We have Petnuts on hiking trips.
Breakfast.
We have Petnuts with our breakfasts.
Yes.
I mean, they're just such
charcuterie boards any time of day.
They're so fun, and I feel like there's really never a wrong time. In the evening, it's just so nice too to like start with a Petnat first before moving on to your red wines or even your white wines. It's just nice to have some bubbles, and it feels like fun. It's celebratory. But you still get like the super complex ones that are much more interesting than just having your, the same old bottle of bubbles that you normally get.
I agree, 100%. And, maybe above all else, they're like super approachable because sometimes people save this bottle of champagne for their promotion, especially Christmas, the anniversary,
A Tuesday morning.
I wish.
We're not there yet.
No. One day.
If y'all could just give us, a lot of listens, maybe we'll be able to afford champagne for breakfast.
But this, drinking a Petnat gives you, because it's not super expensive, it's about half the price of normal champagne.
Yeah.
It's natural. So we give it the Naked Wine Pod stamp of approval.
Totally. So this means, and we talked about this a lot in our first episode, but so many amazing benefits of trying to drink strictly natural wines. A little bit lower in alcohol, which is going to help your hangover if you like to drink a lot, as we do. It can be lower in sugar often because there's no they're not pumping extra things into the wine. They're not tampering with it. They're not dumping let's put this chemical in.
That extra yeast and sugar.
And this in, and that stuff can be hard on your body. And if you're a very superficial person, which I think I am, then I like to wake up the next day after having an amazing evening of a plethora of Petnats and still feel fine.
And feel ready to do it all over again.
Yeah, exactly.
But yes, so it covers all those same bases that we talked about in episode 1 in what in the hay is natural wine. And it's bubbly. So you know what? Don't save it for that, baby shower or 20th anniversary. You can literally have a Petnat whenever you like. And you get this celebratory. I mean, bubbles, you see bubbles, it's automatically a good time.
Yeah.
You're celebrating something. You're cheersing to life, health, happiness. And it just makes it a little bit more fun when you have bubbles in your glass. And a Petnat is just super accessible and super affordable.
Yeah, and I do think sometimes there's a stigma of people saying, "Oh, champagne gives me a headache."
Oh, yes.
I
hear that a lot.
But you know what I think it is? Number one, I think a lot of people refer to champagne. What they're saying is champagne isn't actually champagne. I think it's probably sparkling wine that can be pumped full of sugar and is not made in the champagne method. And that obviously will give anybody a migraine.
PSA for you cooks, drinkers out there. While it's fun in college and to grab one and shake it up and spray it around, it ain't fun the next day. No. You know that. You know this.
They know this. I hope. I hope they know this. So there's that. I think that's part of when I hear people say that, I'm thinking you probably weren't drinking champagne. You were probably drinking something else.
Sparkling wine. If it's not called champagne, most generally are called just sparkling wines.
And the second thing, maybe it is higher in alcohol. And you can find Petnuts that have less sugar and are a little lower in alcohol. So that could be part of it too. So if you're somebody that you just have this thing where you're like, I don't drink bubbles, I would really try Petnuts and see how you feel with them. Because it might be a different experience.
It's great advice. Yeah, it's so weird. My mom, shout out to my mom, Shelly.
Shelly, we love you.
Toss down some champagne.
She is a champagne champion.
Champagne queen. People will be like, oh my gosh, headaches. I can't. They make me feel funny. Give a Petnat a try.
Yeah.
And it won't set you back nearly as much either.
Yeah, totally.
What?
Well, should we talk about pairings?
Yeah, we delved into it a little bit. Breakfast, Captain Crunch and Petnats.
Yes. Oh my God, Captain Crunch.
What do you drink this with? What do we like to pair Petnats with besides basically everything?
Really everything for sure. I guess I would tend to Like, I'm not gonna have a Petnut with my steak, I don't think.
No.
I mean, maybe that's like one thing I'm not
I
gonna
take
have
back
a Petnut
everything.
with.
No steak. You're right.
But I would
Smell.
have a Petnut with my dessert for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's like probably a little bit on the lighter side. I mean, I know we've enjoyed Petnuts with cheese boards. We've enjoyed it with fish, with chicken.
Mm-hmm.
I think that maybe if you're pairing it with food and it's going to be a heavier dish, it's not going to be the go-to, like a pasta or a steak or something.
I think like one of my favorite pairings, like what do you pair with spicy Mexican, Vietnamese,
yes, or
Thai
food,
Indian, like what, people.
What wine do you pair with it?
Petnuts.
I kind of agree.
Something bubbly, something that'll is a little bit acidic. Yep. That will quench your thirst. That
something
doesn't have
cuts the spice a little.
Cuts the spice. Doesn't have a lot of tannins. It might have a little sweetness, and so the sweetness counterbalances the spiciness. It's like spicy food. If you love spicy food, grab a Petnut. Yeah, you can't go wrong.
I totally agree.
You seriously can't go wrong.
Like, we're having Thai food tonight, and we'll probably
open another one of these guys.
This one would be great with it.
Yeah, we'll post on our story which one we open later.
Okay, I love that.
That'll be good. But that's kind of like Petnut in a nutshell. Mm-hmm. We love them. We hope you try them, or maybe you already love them too.
Yeah, and sometimes, like, depending where you're located, it can be hard to find them. But if you have a good, well-rounded wine store, they normally carry at least like 1 or 2 bottles of it. Yeah. But I think especially in Los Angeles, it's becoming more and more popular and more of a thing, and more wine stores, as they're stocking natural wines, specifically like Petnuts, just because it is natural, Petnut natural. They are naturals. It falls right into that category. So look for them. Don't be afraid to just ask for them. You don't have to say the complicated word that I just butchered. You can just say Petnut.
Petnut. P-E-T space N-A-T.
N-A-T. A Petnut.
A Petnut.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Petulant natural. Ancestral.
Petulant natural.
Natural. And pro tip, you know what? I've even seen some of these at Whole Foods.
They do. Field Recordings, I know that they've got Whole Foods carries a Petnut.
There's a giant Whole Foods in Chicago that I went to around Lincoln Park, and they had like a whole natural section. So try a wine shop first. Yeah. And if in doubt, try the Whole Foods near you. Look for the crown cap.
Yes.
There's about a 95% chance that it'll be bubbly if it has the crown cap, but some red wines have crown caps too. So if you see the crown cap, you buy it and it's not bubbly, and you come to us complaining.
This was our scapegoat.
That's the 5% of wines that you just happened to buy that time. So,
but I'm sorry. Remy's right. Like, if you see a little beer bottle cap on top of one, it's a pretty, and it's not like a dark red wine. It's a pretty good sign.
It's a great indicator
that it's probably a Petnut. But just read the bottle. I mean, there'll be things on there that'll
if it says method ancestral or Petnut on it, and there's a crown cap, buy it, drink it, let us know how it tastes.
Totally.
Boom.
Yeah. Well, this was fun. This is going to be a little bit on the shorter side, but I'm so excited we get to share one of our favorite kinds of wine.
We love it. Yeah. Don't worry, we'll finish this in just a few minutes.
Don't worry about that.
All right. Cheers, guys.
Cheers. We love you. Happy drinking.
Happy drinking.
Cheers, babe.
Bye. I'm going to make the wine pod. Peace out.